that God is present here and now. And in the awareness of God's presence, let us pray. Father, Mother, God, we give thanks for this opportunity to be open to the awareness of your presence. Breathing in and breathing out. We are blessed. As we allow the mystery of this moment to unfold, as we allow this next instant to come upon us, we are here in the awareness of your presence, open and receptive. Open, receptive, and responsive. And as we feel this blessing infuse us, lift us, transform us in this moment, we bring to mind those in our experience who seem to have a need for the awareness of your presence, to seem to have a need for the blessings that are offered to us right now. We hold them in consciousness. We see them lifted. We see them transformed. And for this opportunity to be aware, we give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Thanks to whoever offered this. I don't taste any vodka in there. Well, happy Sunday. How was your week? Perfect? All right. Max has a little bit different response. It was, yeah, okay. kind of okay. So what would it be like to appreciate this divine sense of humor? What would that be like to look upon our experience and say, I get it. That's a great punchline. We have in this world an opportunity to look around us and see all kinds of stuff going on. From the tragedies of the peoples of Iraq and Syria, parts that few of us can even imagine what that environment is like, to the stuff going on globally with our climate. Have you heard about the crater that arose, that was discovered in the northern peninsula of Siberia, the peninsula that juts out into the Arctic Ocean? 250 feet in diameter. It was seen by a satellite imagery for the first time about 3 months ago. And scientists immediately flocked there. They couldn't figure out whether it was a meteor that had landed and punched a hole in the earth, or it was something else. A volcano, well, there wasn't a lot of debris around for a volcano, but it did have kind of a layover of material. And what they discovered was that at the bottom of the crater, 250 feet wide and some 60 feet down to the water level, there was a high concentration of methane. And this is in an area that Russia has some extensive gas fields. Natural gas is methane. And the conclusion was that the methane, there was a methane bubble that was under the surface, that with the melting of the permafrost, the methane accumulated into this blister, if you will, and the blister popped, laying the soil out as if there was kind of a poof. Well, it turns out that soon after they discovered another kind of hole. It wasn't as large, but another kind of hole. Well, this is confirming some of the great fears of climatologists, that when the permafrost melts, it's going to release the trapped methane gas. And the reason that that is so critical, disastrous in fact, for climate change, is that methane is 100 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas than is carbon dioxide. So, you know, we've got power plants that are spewing soot into the air, but we've got a whole northern area that is permafrost that is possibly going to be just, pardon my French, farting into the atmosphere. And that can have some significant effects over the course of the next decade, 2 decades, 5 decades. You know, when we look at our children and our grandchildren, and some of us, our great-grandchildren, some of us imagine what those great-grandchildren might be like, and we consider that it's really a big oops, that there's stuff going on in this world that there's nothing to laugh about. On a personal level, we probably can name a dozen things that we wished we had done differently. Perhaps some of us have personal tragedies that in and of themselves, those tragedies had a significant life-altering effect, that if only they hadn't happened, life would be different. Some of those instances, some of those circumstances can be very instructive if we're paying attention. Some of those can be possibly very instructive, but we're not paying attention, so we just continue on with our, well, that's the way it is, and there's nothing to learn from that, and so, well, we just keep on keeping on. This process that we are going through in this life is, it would be hard to say that God is laughing. Now, I do not want to insinuate that there is a God somewhere sitting on a throne considering our behavior and having chuckles, okay? Oh, that was funny. Look at what she did. Boy, let's see if she does that again. Or constructing pratfalls for us. Okay, let's lay down this obstacle and see how Fred here handles that. Or that there is any kind of entertainment of the divine going on from our activities. That's not what I want to imply. But rather that when we talk about God and talking about God in the conception that I have been teaching it, that God is consciousness itself, that this universal consciousness that we are all part and parcel of, that we are an expression of, that this universal consciousness is considering, aware of us all, because we are part of that consciousness. And knowing full well, regardless of what we do, regardless of our circumstances, either on a personal level or on a global level, we are safe. With all this tragedy going on, with the stuff in Ferguson going on, with the police brutality that's being demonstrated, not just in this country, certainly in many cities in this country, but literally all over the world, where authorities are being challenged by the population and they are reacting in a violent and brutal manner. How can we be safe? Well, consider, let's personify God for just a moment, and let's put you in God's place. And if you knew what God knew, and you looked upon what was happening, and you saw the behaviors, and you saw all of the foibles and you saw all of the tragedies, but you knew that this incarnation that humans are going through is just part of an overall curriculum that we will indeed either learn or not learn from these experiences. If you look at that from that perspective, considering that that is true, that, okay, now we can start to see some humor in this. We can start to see the humor of one group of people saying that their religion is true and other people's religions are not true, therefore other people should be exterminated because of their following a false god. One could, if one were aware that this is all part of this divine curriculum, that, okay, well, that's kind of funny. See, we can't relate to that because we see on a personal level, on a human level, we see the beheadings occurring. We see the atrocities, the massacres occurring. We see the individuals being pounced upon by groups of cops and taking the life of unarmed people, whether it be in New York City or Ferguson or Los Angeles or Chicago or wherever it is. We look at that and we say, how can this be? Where is God when this is occurring? How could there be a loving God? How could there be an all-powerful God? How could there be a God that is aware of the circumstances and allow this to happen? Because you see, we still think death is the end. We still consider the end time to be at the point that we depart from this incarnation. So, if we allow that our perspective is not necessarily true, and when we look around the world, boy, wouldn't that be nice if we all had that approach? My truth may not be your truth. In fact, my truth may not even be true. But I'm going to go ahead and follow my truth and see how it works in my experience. And if I follow the truth and see how it works in my experience, and it turns out that it fulfills my life, or it lifts my life, or it allows me to have fulfilling relationships, then maybe, just maybe, my truth is good enough for me. But it doesn't have to be good enough for someone else. What if we had, universally on this planet, we had that perspective? I dare say that we would have a substantial shift in not just the consciousness, but in the life experiences of everybody on this planet. So, if God has the perspective and the awareness that this incarnation is not the end, that this is just part of the eternal curriculum of coming to a greater understanding of our relationship to God, if that is the perspective, then I can see there's lots to laugh about. You know, as we look upon once again, oh, wait a minute. See, there is opportunity to be thankful in every moment. Okay. If we consider the teachings of unity and the 5 basic principles of unity, if you go to any most unity churches, some unity churches don't pay a whole lot of attention to that, some ministers, but in my mind, this is really the essence of what unity teaches. And it's going to have different flavors in different ministries. Different ministers are going to be expressing this in different ways. But these 5 principles, in my mind, are the foundation of everything that we teach in unity. The first 2 principles are premises. That is, we can't prove them, but we're going to assume that they are true. That there is one power and one presence, God the good, omnipotence. Not just omnipotence, but also omnipresence and omniscience. All present, everywhere present, all knowing, all knowledge, not just all knowing. And you see it's not omnipotent or omnipresent or omnipotent, but it is the principle of all power, the principle of all knowledge, the principle of all presence. Because otherwise, God would just be a being somewhere that has those characteristics. The one Son of God, the Christ, abides in each and every one of us. Okay, so those are not provable per se. At least I haven't seen a definitive proof that either of those is true. But let's assume that those are true, because then we can move to the third, to the provability. That is, the thoughts we hold in mind manifest in our experience. We can, in fact, pay attention to that and see how that works. We can see that if I am constantly afraid, I'm going to see in my experience lots of things to be afraid about. If I have the consciousness of safety, I'm going to look upon all of the stuff that goes on in my life, and I see that, well, that wasn't so bad. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, I'm lonely, but that's okay. I can move on. I have an awareness. I have a lesson that came from that. I have a blessing that came from that, whatever that is. Then we have the practice of the 4 tools that allow us to transform our consciousness: prayer, meditation, denials, and affirmation. I'm not going to spend any time on those. I'm just going to mention them. And then we come to the 5th. And the 5th is often overlooked. But the 5th really defines our purpose, that when we can change our lives by practicing these principles. And when we practice the principles and we see the transformation in our lives, we have circumstantial proof that all of this is true. Right? Okay, so we change our lives by practicing these principles. Well, as we consider then what we are about as children of the divine, as the expressions of this Godhead, as the incarnate trying to find another word, but as the incarnate participants of the Godhead, as we practice and prove, we can come back to the point that, well, yeah, this is all hanging together. Yeah, these tragedies may or may not have a direct impact on us. In fact, they have an indirect impact. All of them have an indirect impact on us, because all of them affect the consciousness of which we are a part, this global consciousness, not the divine consciousness. The divine consciousness is learning and growing from our foibles, but it is not. But it is the global consciousness of this planet that we are actively a part of. Last night at about 8:30, I was emailing back and forth with the national coordinator of the Sacred Art Tour, which is the 6 monks and their Tibetan interpreter that are coming here on the 24th through the 30th of September. We're going to dedicate a section of the sanctuary here to a 5-foot by 5-foot board that is going to be a mandala. They're going to do a sand painting here. And we're going to have workshops, and we're going to have activities around the Tibetan culture. We're going to have a cultural pageant, and there's going to be a theological debate that they're going to put on. We're going to have, we're going to possibly go down to the state capitol and have a prayer vigil on the steps of the state capitol. Don't know that yet. We need to get a permit for that. But we're looking to have a whole set of activities around the Tibetan monks that are here to demonstrate the principle of impermanence. How do they do that? They dedicate 5 days of arduous work, dropping grain by grain, pieces of sand, into a pattern that they are developing as they go. Yes, they probably have some pattern that they're going to go with, but they together will come to a unique pattern on the floor on this 5 foot by 5 foot board over the course of 5 days. And then part of this process is once it is completed, they will sweep it into a dustpan and take it down to the creek and let it float away. Principle of impermanence. 6 monks working 5 days, full time, to create this beautiful work of art that will be swept into a dustpan and obliterated. That's coming up September 24 to 30. I was talking with the national coordinator, Simone, and I said, you know, Sue, do you have a talk title that I might be able to use? And she said, sure, God's sense of humor. So that's where the talk came from. It turns out that that title that she gave me was a launching point for this talk. And it also allowed me to bring into this talk something that I was having a hard time getting my hands around earlier in the week. And this idea that the book is The Goldilocks Enigma by Paul Davies. He's a physicist, cosmologist. And one of the point of this book is that we are living in a very special time, in a very special place, in a very special universe. And he goes on to detail why it is such a special universe. Why? And he talks about the physical constants that have to be tuned just within fractions of a percent in order for the galaxies to have formed, in order for the planets to have formed around stars, in order for orbits to be as they are, in order for atmospheres to form, in order for life form to actually arise, and for evolution to be given time to proceed to such a degree that the fulfillment of what we see as evolution here on the planet are the whales. So, not us. That because that's part of the joke. So the Goldilocks Enigma is really a fascinating topic for me because truly we are in a very special time with a very special level of awareness. Those of you who are gathered here with curious minds. You're looking to understand your relationship with the divine, and you're willing to test out the principles that I offer in your own lives. You truly are special people in that regard, because there are so many people that want to be told what to believe. They want to be told, here's the dogma you must follow. And so we have this plethora of dogmas around the planet of people who say, this has got to be right because someone else told me. I don't care about whether or not I can see it on my life. Someone of authority told me that it's true. I read it somewhere in Scripture. It must be true because somebody else who knows more than I do said that it's true. But you are here because you're curious and because you're willing to look upon these ideas and consider them, test them, and then let go of those things that don't work and take on those things that do. We are in a very special time, and we can be very thankful. We can be very thankful that we are here. And anything that goes on around us, we can look at it and say, oh boy, yeah, that hurts. Or that makes a change in my life. But wow, we are in a special time. We are in a special place, in a special consciousness that allows us to explore who we are and what is our relationship with the divine. Just think about that. Think about the blessings that is. So whatever the tragedies are that befall us, whatever the circumstances are that happen elsewhere, realize that yes, we are affected. Realize that yes, we need compassion for those tragedies. Yes, we need to step forth and do what we are called to do in order to lift others, to help others, to serve others, to give others the opportunity to come into the consciousness. Not because we say it's right, but rather we let them discover that it's right. that we are in a special place, in a special time, with a special consciousness that we can allow others to also experience. What a wonderful blessing this moment has in that realization. Do you feel it? Do you get your heart around that? Can you wrap your consciousness around that? The blessing that arises in our awareness in this moment is the sound of God laughing. We'll have our meditation. As we come into our meditation, let us come in with I cast all my cares. Settle into the awareness of this moment. As we let this moment unfold, releasing all of the baggage that we carried into it, releasing all of our judgments, releasing all of our expectations, we allow this moment to be the blossom of blessings. Special time, a special place, and a special consciousness to hear God laughing. Allow the awareness of those blessings to arise within the heart, to spread within the body and consciousness, eliminating the dark corners of our minds, healing the wounds that have been suppressed. This moment is full. We are lifted. We are healed. We're transformed by the awareness that indeed we are safe and that we have been given just the right curriculum for us to grow, to learn, to celebrate. We quiet our minds. Allow ourselves to be filled with the sound of God's laughter. Blessings at every turn, in every realization. are safe. And in this awareness, we come back to this time, this space, carrying the sounds of these peals of laughter with us as we share the words of the Lord's Prayer.